Good morning, grade 9s, and welcome back to Quarantine English with Mr. Fouché. Today we are doing the formal letter. The formal letter will also be the first task that you guys will receive. You guys might have heard of these. So each week you will get a day. For the grade 9s, it's Thursdays, where you will get a task and you'll get an entire week to complete it. You'll hand in the task that you were given and then receive a new task on that day, and so on and so forth. Your first one for English will be a formal letter. So let's get started on how to do one. First thing I would like to talk about is the reason for using a formal letter. First of all, it's in the wording itself. It's a very formal situation. So think perhaps you want to apply for a job somewhere. Then you will use a formal letter. You guys already sort of touched on it when we did the CV and the cover letter. The cover letter also uses the formal letter, what's the word I could use? A formula, so to speak. Okay, so again, you've got the two dates, which we will get to. The greeting. Here is a little heading to indicate what you'll be talking about. After that, you follow the normal structure of writing. You've got your introduction, the body, which will have one thing per paragraph that you will be speaking about, so 1 point per paragraph. Then you end it with your conclusion, where you, in a formal letter, it's also referred to as an action paragraph. So what do you want to happen? And then you have your ending. So let's start with our addresses, the very first thing we'll do. So we start off with our address, the sender's address. This is very similar to the address done in the informal letter as well. So you've got the number, let's use a number like 10. And also you'll know in English, you always start with the number. In Afrikaans, that's different, but we're not doing Afrikaans, so forget about all of that. You start with a number. Also, the smallest thing you can refer to, it's your house number, as to where you stay, of course. The next bigger thing that you can refer to as where you stay is the street. The street is the next big thing. So let's say Tim Street. You will notice that street is also capitalized. The reason for this is it makes part of the name. And something to remember, grade 9s, every single word in a letter's address will start with a capital letter because it's going to be part of the name of something. Might be the name of the street or the suburb or the city, still a name. Let's take the dates, for instance, name of a month, still capitalized. So remember that as well. The next big thing you can refer to, bigger than the street, is your suburb, of course. Let's, I don't know, Boksburg North, why not? So Boksburg North is one of many suburbs that make up Boksburg itself. So think of it as the big puzzle would be the city, and those different puzzles are the suburbs. Now, the big city is obviously the next thing you can refer to, which is Boksburg. And then you write the postal code, always 4 numbers. Okay, so you've got the actual postal code here is 1459, but you don't have to use that postal code. In fact, you don't have to use any of these. So you can make up these as you go along unless your assessment tells you what to write down there, which makes your life easier. You just copy and paste what the assessment gave you. But if they ever tell you you have to use your own address, you can make those things up as you go along. But try not to write Boksburg here where the suburb should be, because whoever is marking your things will know that Boksburg is a city and won't accept that answer. So yes, you can make things up, but don't use actual places and swap them around. Okay, so this is the address. Now we have to add one more thing, which is the date. You'll start with the number, so let's say it's the first, the month, which you will have to write out, and then the year. Okay, so you have to write it out like this. You can't use mathematical, like this. That would be incorrect. It would be marked down. You would lose marks for format. So try never to do that. And that is the address of the sender. So it's your address. Let's quickly do the address of the receiver, which is the company. So you are probably going to write to a company, which means there's a person that works there and has a certain job description, so to speak. let's say it is the manager, okay? Which is also the way that you'll be starting your letter. You will show what the person does in the beginning of his address. So, the manager. Okay, here's now one of those things. It's the slight exception to the rule of everything is a proper noun in the addresses, because here it's just a plain noun. It's just the manager. Okay, so the manager, or if you just wrote down manager, it'd be a little bit more of a cut to your wording there. So I would just write down the manager rather. But if you just wrote manager, capitalize the manager, and you'll still be fine. But here you've got the name of the person. The next thing to write down would be the company name. So let's say they worked for, I don't know, McDonald's. Okay. There we go, McDonald's. Then the next thing is the PO box. PO box, it stands for post office box, or postal office box. So it refers to a place where the company, McDonald's, would go to if they want to get their letters. This is usually used for something where you can't just deliver a letter directly to the actual address of the company. But yeah, so you write down P, then O, box, and you can make up a number there. That would be the number of McDonald's postal office box. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, very simple. And then you write down the city. Let's say it was in Boksburg. And again, the postal code. And there you go. That is the address of the receiver. So here you can see everything is pretty much there. Let's just have a quick look around what this address is. Many people tend to make a mistake here. So the manager, it's the job description of the person you are addressing the letter to. Then McDonald's, which is the company's name. PO box, that's the number of the box or the place where McDonald's goes to get their letters. Then the city, and then the postal code. You do not need to write down the date again because it's already written down under your address. So up to this point, the addresses have been dealt with. So this has been done, that has been done. The next thing here, you will write down dear, and now one of two things will happen. If you know the name of the manager, then you can write out that name. Let's say it's if it's a male, so to speak, it will be Mr. That is what we call his title. If you are a doctor, for instance, it would be Dr, indicating doctor. But here, we'll just call him Mr. and, I don't know, Smith, why not? So, dear Mr. Smith. If it was a lady, then it changes slightly. There are 3 variants for this. But again, you need to be certain about these. So, if Smith here was married, if she's a lady, then it would be MRS. That indicates married. If it's not someone who's married, then MISS. That's just Miss. And if you are not sure, but I would prefer you not to use this one, if you are ever not sure if someone is married or not, and you still want to address them formally, you just write down MS. Okay, but steer away from this one. Just rather say Mrs. or Miss. Don't make things difficult for yourself in an assessment. If you do not know these people, you just refer to their title. So you still need to greet them, so to speak. You will say, dear sir, or if it's a lady, madam. Okay, so that is how you would greet them. The next thing to do, you will see there's a little line over there. And this is going to be your main topic of discussion. So what are you really talking about? Perhaps you are, let's say you are applying for a job. Then you could write down application of whatever the job description is you want to do. If it was McDonald's and we're still sticking to that story, perhaps you want to be a chef at McDonald's. I don't think you refer to them as chefs, but why not? So application for chef. that would be underlined as well. Think of it as almost like the heading of a story, which tells you exactly what that story is about in a very short amount of words, of course, and that is it. Okay, now after that, you start with your introduction. Your introduction needs to introduce what you will be talking about. So you are sort of expanding upon the line that you had, the underlined message. So application of chef. Introduction might start something like, I have always been fascinated with cooking and I would like to apply for the position as advertised in the Boksburg Advertiser for becoming a chef in your restaurant or your company. Okay, so anything like that, you are introducing your point. Okay, in the body, you might want to try and win over these people, of course, if you want a job. So with the body, you'll be writing down many different paragraphs, and I'm going to explain all of these now to you. I know they are squiggly lines and not actual words. Okay, it's very important to remember, first of all, you need paragraphs. You can't write one big blob. If you do that, there is no structure to your formal letter, and you'll be losing a lot of marks for structure. So you need paragraphs. That's the first thing. Secondly, always leave a line open in between paragraphs. Otherwise, how do you know where the paragraph begins or ends? It's a very simple thing, but still some mistakes that are made. And the last thing about paragraphs I would like to talk about, it's 1 point of discussion per paragraph. So you've got 3 things to talk about. Usually you go for 3. You want to, first of all, convince them that you are a good chef, perhaps. Okay, so here you will just be talking about perhaps where you were a chef before, anything like that. Then here you might explain to them why you want to work at McDonald's. And then you can explain, no, I want to work there because of this and that, and you will, in a way, elaborate why their company is the one that you chose. So that is a point on itself. And the last one here, we might say something like how you would improve their company, or how you would help their company along. So that's another point as well. So because you are this and this and this type of chef, you will attract different audiences to their company, or different people, types of people to their company, anything like that. But it is very important, and you can make these up as you go along, of course, in your own letter. It's 1 point per paragraph. Okay, so try not to steer away from this. It's very important. Now, the next thing here that we'll talk about is our conclusion, sometimes referred to as the action paragraph, because in this paragraph, you will say what is supposed to happen. So if you are applying for a job, you'll explain that please look at my recommendations, please look at my application, and I would like to have an interview scheduled to see if I am a suitable chef for your company. So you are telling them what you want, okay, or what the action should be. Let's say a different scenario from the McDonald's thing, or we can use McDonald's again. Now you are writing a letter because your burger was overcooked, okay? In your conclusion, you will tell them that you want a refund, okay? So that's the action you want from them. So remember, in your conclusion, it's always about action. Think of something that needs to happen, and then end your paragraph with that. And obviously, your conclusion is based on what you said in the body. Okay, so you can't just write an entire letter explaining how horrible their burgers are, and in your conclusion you say, so, due to all that I have just said, I would like you to buy me a teddy bear. No, that's completely off topic. Don't do that, okay? Always make sure that your story is based on itself. Okay. Then you get to your ending. It's actually quite easy. The best way to do this is start with yours faithfully. Technically, if you know this person, so you knew the manager, you can say sincerely. But just to be on the safe side, use faithfully. So you will start with yours faithfully. Okay. Now, after you've written down yours faithfully, directly below that, you are going to add your signature. So whatever your signature looks like, mine always appears different every single time I do it, but there you go. You add your signature, it makes it formal. And then you write down your name and surname. Okay? Very important to remember here that your surname needs to be included. Okay. So if you just add your name, it's a more informal way of doing it, as you do in the informal letter, where you just need to write your name because that person already knows who you are. But now if it's a job applicant or application, then they do not know who you are. So if you just add your name, they're going to say, oh, your name is John. I know thousands of Johns. Who is this from? Okay. Your surname is very important here as well. And that is pretty much the entire format of your letter. So let's really quickly sum things up, and I'll actually use this to explain everything. This is the address of the sender. It's your address. Okay, remember start small and end big. So you start with your street or your house number, street name, suburb, city, then you get to your postal code, and the last thing is, of course, your date. Then you leave a line open, okay? Just to make things look very neat, you leave a line open there, and then you write down the address of the people receiving this letter. You will start with the job description of the person you are writing to. So that's the first thing, like the manager. After that, the company name. Below that, you will write down this the PO box. So to what PO box, what postal box is this letter going to be sent to? After that, the city, and after that, the postal code. If that is done, you leave a line open once again. Okay, so here we go. You leave open a line there as well. And then you will start with your greetings. So it's going to be dear, sir, or madam, if you do not know these people. If you do know them, it's title plus surname. Then you leave open a line again. Then it's the quick, which you will underline, of course, the quick heading, so to speak, of what your letter will be about. In a way of speaking, it's the gist of it. So if it's a job application, you can say application for the job of whatever. If it is a complaint that you want to write in, you can write down a complaint about product and whatever the product is. Then you will leave open the line again. Okay, and in this one, you'll write the introduction, where you will introduce the topic that you would like to talk about. In a way, you are elaborating on whatever you underlined. And after that, whatever you have introduced there in the body, remember, 1 point per paragraph in the body itself. And after you have done that, just remember, it's going to be lines that you leave open here between the intro and the body, and between the body's paragraphs, you leave lines open as well. The conclusion, same thing, leave open line. And just before the ending, again, you leave open a line. But everything in the ending, so the yours faithfully, the signature, your name and surname, that is written down line after line. So you don't have to leave open lines in there. I hope this was not too confusing. It is a little bit more difficult than your informal letter, but that was the formal letter. I hope it helps you in your task that you will receive in 2 days' time, if my timing is correct with this video. So thank you, grade 9s, for tuning into this lesson. I hope it helped you, and stay safe. Cheers.